The day a powerful CEO warned a struggling single father to stay away from her secretary, he thought she was protecting her employee from a man who had nothing to offer. He never imagined that the warning was hiding a truth powerful enough to change 3 lives forever. What began as a simple misunderstanding inside a glass-walled corporate office would soon uncover an old promise, a hidden sacrifice, and the one reason a lonely secretary had been quietly watching over his little daughter for months. Before we begin, if you believe kindness can give people a second chance when life has already taken almost everything from them, please like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, leave a comment, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad. Your support helps us bring more stories about ordinary people whose hearts are stronger than their circumstances. Every morning, 36-year-old Rowan Mercer woke before sunrise in a small apartment above a neighborhood bakery. He was a single father raising his 8-year-old daughter, Tessa, after losing his wife 3 years earlier. Rowan never talked much about the hardest years of his life. He simply woke up, packed Tessa's lunch, checked that her school uniform was clean, and went to work. He had recently taken a position as a maintenance technician at a large technology company called Veyron Systems. The salary was modest, but to Rowan it meant everything. It meant rent could be paid on time. It meant Tessa could keep attending the school she loved. Most importantly, it meant he could keep his promise to give his daughter a stable childhood even though his own life had fallen apart. The first person at Veyron who noticed Rowan was not his supervisor or one of the executives. It was 31-year-old Mira Calder, the CEO's secretary. Mira was calm, observant, and unusually kind. She had dark brown hair usually tied neatly at the back of her head, warm hazel eyes, and a habit of remembering tiny details about everyone she met. She noticed when Rowan skipped lunch because he was saving money. She noticed the tired circles beneath his eyes. And one rainy afternoon, when Rowan arrived at work carrying a soaked backpack because Tessa's school bus had broken down and he had spent his lunch break running across town to pick her up, Mira quietly left a cup of hot tea on his desk without saying a word. Their friendship grew slowly. There was nothing romantic about it at first. Mira sometimes helped Rowan find affordable school supplies. Rowan fixed the loose wheel on Mira's office chair. She occasionally brought leftover pastries from the bakery downstairs for Tessa. Rowan's daughter quickly became fond of her, especially because Mira always listened to her stories about school as though they were the most important things in the world. But someone else was watching. Seraphina Vale, Veyron Systems' 42-year-old CEO, was known throughout the company for being brilliant, disciplined, and almost impossible to read. She had built the company from a small software firm into a multinational business, but success had made her fiercely protective of the people closest to her. She trusted almost no one. So when she noticed Mira spending more time with Rowan, her expression changed. One clear afternoon, Rowan was called into Seraphina's private office. The room overlooked the city, filled with clean daylight and towering buildings beyond the windows. Rowan stood awkwardly near the door while Seraphina looked through a folder on her desk. Then she finally looked up and delivered a warning that left him stunned. She told him to keep his distance from Mira. She said Mira was not someone he should become emotionally attached to, and she made it clear that if he continued getting close to her, his position at the company could become complicated. Rowan did not argue. He simply nodded. He went back to work that day feeling humiliated. He had never imagined that kindness could be mistaken for something inappropriate. More importantly, he did not want his daughter to lose the security they had worked so hard to build. So Rowan began avoiding Mira. He stopped taking his breaks near her office. He stopped accepting her help. When she asked if something was wrong, he simply smiled and said everything was fine. But Mira knew he was lying. She watched him become quieter every day, and eventually she confronted Seraphina. That confrontation changed everything. Mira told the CEO that Rowan had done nothing wrong and that she would not allow him to be punished simply because someone had misunderstood their friendship. Seraphina remained silent for a long time before revealing that her warning had never been about Rowan being unworthy of Mira. It was about Tessa. Years earlier, before Rowan had ever heard of Veyron Systems, Mira had worked at a small community center. One afternoon, she had found a frightened little girl sitting alone outside after school. The girl had been waiting for her father, who was working an extra shift. That little girl was Tessa. Mira had remembered her because Tessa had been carrying a tiny drawing of her mother. The child had been trying not to cry. Mira stayed beside her until Rowan arrived. That day, she saw something that never left her memory, a young father running through the rain, terrified that something had happened to his daughter. He arrived breathless, wrapped Tessa in his arms, and apologized over and over even though none of it had been his fault. Mira had never forgotten him. But there was more. Seraphina explained that Mira had once been engaged to Seraphina's younger brother, Callan. Before he died unexpectedly several years earlier, Callan had told Seraphina something that she had carried as a secret ever since. He had asked his sister to protect Mira because Mira had sacrificed years of her own happiness to care for people who needed her. Callan believed Mira deserved someone who valued her kindness rather than taking advantage of it. Seraphina had become overprotective. She had seen Rowan and assumed Mira was becoming emotionally attached to another person who might eventually hurt her. She had tried to prevent history from repeating itself without ever asking what Mira actually wanted. But then Mira revealed the truth that made Seraphina realize how wrong she had been. She was not trying to get close to Rowan because she wanted his attention. She was getting close because she had discovered that Rowan was struggling to keep Tessa in school. Mira had quietly learned that Rowan's apartment rent had increased, his car needed expensive repairs, and he had been working weekend shifts to cover the difference. He had never asked anyone for help because pride was the only thing he felt he still completely controlled. Mira had been planning to help him anonymously. She had even arranged a scholarship through the company's community foundation so Tessa could continue attending school without Rowan knowing who had sponsored it. When Seraphina heard this, her entire attitude changed. She realized that Rowan had never been chasing Mira's position, money, or influence. He had been doing the opposite. He had avoided her because he was afraid of losing his job and hurting his daughter's future. That evening, Seraphina went to Rowan's apartment herself. For the first time, the powerful CEO stood outside a small apartment door with no assistants, no security team, and no corporate authority to hide behind. Rowan opened the door and looked surprised. Seraphina apologized. Not the kind of apology people give because they want a problem to disappear, but the kind that admits they were wrong. She told Rowan she had judged him without knowing his story. She told him that his dedication to Tessa had earned her respect. Most importantly, she told him that the scholarship was not charity. It was an opportunity Tessa had earned through her academic work, and Rowan had nothing to be ashamed of accepting it. Rowan struggled to hold back his emotions. Then Tessa appeared from the hallway holding a school project. She recognized Seraphina from a company event and immediately began explaining her project about people who make a difference without expecting anything in return. Seraphina listened. Then she looked at Rowan. And for the first time, the three adults understood that the real lesson had never been about romance or status. It was about judgment. Months passed, and life slowly became lighter. Rowan's financial pressure eased. Tessa remained in her school. Mira became a trusted friend to both of them, and Seraphina stopped trying to control the people she loved. Instead, she learned to trust them. One bright afternoon, Rowan stood outside the Veyron building watching Tessa run toward Mira with a school certificate in her hands. Mira knelt down and hugged the excited girl while Seraphina watched from the entrance. Rowan smiled. He realized that sometimes life does not give you back what you lost. Sometimes it gives you something different, something unexpected, and something that teaches you why you survived the difficult years in the first place. He had entered Veyron Systems as a tired single father desperate to keep his family afloat. He had expected nothing except a paycheck. Instead, he found people who challenged his assumptions, friendships he never expected, and a second chance to believe that good people could still appear when life felt darkest. And Mira discovered something too. Kindness was not weakness. It was courage. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes people deserve second chances, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad. Sometimes one small act of support can help a story reach the person who needs it most. And before we end, special request, comment, kindness deserves a second chance, below if you believe we should never judge someone before knowing the battles they are fighting. Because Rowan's story reminds us of something simple but powerful: you never truly know how hard someone is working just to keep their world from falling apart. The quiet father beside you may be carrying 1,000 worries behind his smile. The person who seems distant may simply be protecting the people they love. And the person you think needs saving may actually be the one teaching everyone else how to survive. Sometimes, the greatest turning point in a person's life begins with one stranger choosing not to judge them. And sometimes, the warning meant to keep two people apart becomes the very moment that finally reveals the truth.